Saving people is the crux of being a hero, and being a hero is a massive part of gaming. Sure, some gamers like to sprint away from altruism and delve headfirst into murder and mayhem, but the act of protecting the characters you care about is a lure that many can't avoid. Of course, that's kind of a double-edged sword, as there are some people you just can't save, and it hurts worse than a hornet sting. That's the ones we're going to talk about today, so let me tell you really early on in the video that I am going to tell you about characters who die, and you can't save them, so there are going to be heavy spoilers in this list. That said, these characters definitely deserved your help, but the devs clearly didn't want to give it to them. I'm Jess from WhatCulture, and here are 10 characters you should have been able to save, but couldn't. Number 10. Evelyn Parker, Cyberpunk 2077. Death is a fate that befalls many of the residents of Night City, but while the unavoidable demise of the beloved Jackie Wells, for example, plays an integral role in the story, Evelyn Parker's ending feels a little more preventable, even though it's not. Evelyn is a doll you encounter early in the game. She seems destined for narrative relevance, as it's her who plans the heist on Arasaka Tower and kicks the whole story into motion. However, after everything goes tits up, Evelyn experiences a fate worse than death, becoming the subject of numerous torture BDs. You and Judy do eventually come to her rescue, but the damage is too great and she ends up taking her life. While her response to the horrors she's been through is pretty darn understandable, it still hurts that there's no option to help her get through the trauma, and it really feels like you should have been able to help when you rescue her. You can prevent a bunch of character deaths in the game, including Takamura, Songbird, and even V. The fact Evelyn's demise is fixed indicates how much she went through and how hopeless this setting and brutal Night City can be. No matter what you do or try, this tragic doll will always end up broken. Or as the game itself says, a happy ending for folks like us? Wrong city. Wrong people. Number 9. Trish Daly, Infamous. Infamous is a game that leans heavily on player choice. Sure, these choices are about as complex as blue for good and red for evil, but they are still there. As such, when putting you in the moral quandary of whether to save your ex or some strangers, it's pretty sneaky to reveal that she dies, no matter what you do. Trish Daly is the protagonist's ex-girlfriend, and most of their interactions revolve around him trying to get her back on his side. Sadly, the villain, Kessler, gives you an ultimatum before this can happen. He takes Trish and suspends her from a building, but he also suspends 6 anonymous doctors from another building. You're then told you can only save one, and the choice is yours. If you decide to save the doctors, then naturally Trish falls to her death. However, if you decide to save Trish, then she will still fall to her death. It turns out Kessler tricked you, and the woman you just saved was a decoy, while Trish was with the doctors. It's a great example of a false choice, but that doesn't make it hurt any less. Number 8. Walter, Fable 3. The Fable series, like Infamous, provides an admittedly fun but very black and white morality system. There's no real challenge to your choices, as things are either obviously good or deeply downright evil. That said, the series does often adjust major character deaths based on your actions. Loads of figures like Twin Blade, Logan, Ripper, Saker, and more can be spared from the Reaper's sight. Hell, even the biggest death in Fable 2, your dog, is reversible. Unfortunately, Walter, your loving mentor from Fable 3, does not share the same luxury. The brave warrior is a fatherly figure to your nameless protagonist throughout the title. However, he tragically bites the dust in the game's climax, ultimately being taken down by you, the player, after he's possessed by the Crawler. And that's pretty much all she wrote. He dies, it's sad, game over. But given that death has proven itself reversible before, as evidenced by the final choice in Fable 2, it feels unfortunate that you don't have the option to bring him back or spare him in the first place. Come on, Teresa, you really can't get another Spire-like wish going? What a letdown. Number 7. Ketherick Thorm, Baldur's Gate 3. This is a bit of a weird one, but stings all the same. Now, player choice is a massive part of Baldur's Gate 3, with almost every interaction able to be altered. This is particularly thrilling for the non-confrontational, as you can talk yourself out of nearly every encounter, which is very cool. This even applies to Act 2's big bad, Ketherick Thorm. Sadly, while you can avoid his boss fight, no amount of charisma can ultimately save him. Thorm is a dastardly villain who commits several heinous atrocities. That said, some might sympathize with his cause, given he did all those awful things to revive his dead daughter. With these tragic undertones, it's fitting that the player has multiple chances to talk him out of hostility. These checks come during his initial encounter atop Moonrise Towers and his boss fight in the Mind Flayer colony. Ranni. The thing is, even if you do talk him out of that second showdown, he'll always sacrifice himself to become the Apostle of Merkel. It's fair enough that you do need that big fight at the end of Act 2, but it's a shame you can't talk enough sense into him to change his fate. Number 6. Thane, Mass Effect 3. One of the Mass Effect series' crowning achievements is that damn near every character can live or die depending on how you play. However, while almost every squad member can be kept alive, you can't stop every rogue bullet or sword, and some characters are just destined for the grave. Enter Thane Krios. And given I decided to switch up and pick him as my love interest instead of Liara when I played Legendary Edition, this one is pretty darn brutal. This Drell assassin is a fan-favorite character, as his inner conflict between his deadly profession and spirituality make him super compelling and sympathetic. That's why many players felt intense heartbreak when he dies in Mass Effect 3 after being stabbed by Kai Lang, who sucks. Okay, that hurt, but it's alright, I can reload or start the game again and I'll save him, you might think. But no, that's not the case. Rescuing him is a hopeless endeavor, as his death is a fixed, irreversible, and permanent story point. Now, there are ways to keep Thane from being killed by Kai Lang, but even in those instances, he'll still pass away due to his terminal illness, Keppel syndrome. Thane is destined to shuffle off his mortal coil in front of you, proving that casualties are unavoidable in war. Number 5. Josh, Until Dawn. To be very clear, you can save Josh in Until Dawn if you're playing the remastered version, but when it comes to the OG, don't expect any mercy for this little psycho. The thrill of Until Dawn comes from your attempts to keep every character alive throughout the night, or to let as many of them die as possible if that's more your style. Unfortunately, this task is no easy feat, as the young ensemble is forced to contend with a horrifying serial killer as well as Wendigos. Yikes. One of these youngsters is Josh, a creepy guy played by Rami Malek, who is eventually revealed to have been the serial killer, albeit as part of a sickening prank. Now, given the whole MO of the game is to try and keep everyone alive, even someone as bad as Josh deserves a chance, right? Well, you would think so, but no. In the original title, there's no option to spare him. He's either killed by a Wendigo or turned into one himself. So yeah, those are not great options. Number 4. Vesemir, The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. If you were to list all the best gaming mentors, you'd have a treasure trove of names like Sully, Lee Everett, Professor Oak, and a bunch more. But it wouldn't matter because Vesemir, mentor to the White Wolf, would just come along and kick all their butts anyway. Not even Fable 3's Walter would stand a chance. Given how powerful, caring, and important Vesemir is, it goes without saying that his death in The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt tugs on the heartstrings. Naturally, this moment also led to an inevitable avalanche of Google searches that read, "How do I say Vesemir?" Of which the answer is, you can't. You spend a long time preparing for the siege upon Kaer Morhen by the titular Wild Hunt, gathering allies, fortifying the place, and a bunch of other tactics. Given all that work, it's painful to know that Vesemir will die no matter what. His final moments are fittingly heroic as he sacrifices his life to help Ciri escape, but knowing that your choices can save a bunch of different characters and heavily alter the ending, it sucks that you can't do anything for your beloved mentor. Number 3. Ethan Forrester, Telltale's Game of Thrones. Everyone knows that Game of Thrones is as brutal to its characters as a kid with a magnifying glass to an anthill. That said, when combining the franchise with the Telltale game model, definitionally feels like something that you have more control over. Hell, these games are famed for their narrative looseness regarding character death, so it'll be fun. Then one of the main playable characters is brutally killed, and there is nothing you can do about it. Telltale's Game of Thrones puts you in control of 5 main characters, one of which being the kind, bright, and lovable Ethan Forrester. This young man is thrust into a position that he doesn't want to be in as Lord of Ironrath, eventually leading to the bastard of Bolton, Ramsay Snow, murdering him. This happens at the end of the first episode, which makes you wonder if you could have done anything to prevent it. Well, but unlike most Telltale characters who can avoid death based on your choices, there's not anything you can do about this one. Ethan is one of the developers' only characters with a fixed canonical death. Damn it, Telltale, everyone will remember that. Number 2, Blade, Elden Ring. Some of you might be thinking, but there is a way to save Blade, just don't do Ranni's quest. And yes, that is technically true. But come on, realistically speaking, you can save any character by not playing the games they're in, but where's the fun in that? As such, this entry will discuss the fate that befalls Blade if you do finish his quest. But anyway, who's Blade? Well, this half-man, half-wolf is a constant companion throughout Ranni's story. As a vassal given to the powerful witch by the two fingers, the man's, loyalty isn't to be questioned. He'd fight and die for his mistress, and sadly, those waters get murky as Rani's mission pits her against the very thing that created him, the greater will. This conflict between his cosmic programming and his unparalleled dedication to Rani eventually results in him losing his mind and becoming hostile, forcing you to put him down. It's a moment that hurts more than dying to Melania for the 50th time. The game does have convoluted ways to save characters like Bok or Melina, so why not your wolf buddy? Brutal. Number 1. Everyone. The Outer Wilds. The incomparable Outer Wilds is a mostly peaceful game, bar the odd anglerfish or two. In it, you explore an alien solar system, piecing together the lore and figuring out the mechanics. The thing is, though, it's also a time loop story with a non-stop apocalypse that sets you back to the beginning. But unlike Majora's Mask's falling moon, this time it's an exploding sun. Now, a supernova seems a little impossible to put a stop to, but it's okay because the game implies that reaching the famed eye of the universe could be the solution. So that's the answer, right? Just get to the eye. Well, not quite. Unfortunately, by the time you reach the end credits, you'll learn that your solar system is doomed, no matter what you do. That's right, there is no way to stop the supernova. There's no way to save your friends, planet, people, or yourself. All you can do is bask in the glow of an exploding star and see what happens next. Did you really think you could stop the inevitable heat death of the universe? If only.